Hello, thank you so much for joining me for Art Snaps. My name's Katie Ackrell and I'm the Engagement Officer for the Art on Tour project at Swindon Museum and Art Gallery. And since lockdown began, I've been having a lot of fun chatting about Swindon's collection of modern British art in this podcast. Amazingly, we're already on episode 9, and up until this point I've been focusing predominantly on two-dimensional works from Swindon's collection. But in my last talk about the collection for the Swindon Spring Festival, I also hinted at Swindon's impressive collection of British studio ceramics when I was speaking about Patricia Volk's vibrant piece, Blue Sentinel Heads. So I thought now would be a good time to focus on this aspect of the art collection, which includes around 300 pieces, covering the 20th century as well as contemporary artists working with the medium of clay. And the ceramics collection really represents the huge variety of work that makes up the canon of British studio ceramics and shows the way artists tread the line between fine art and functionality and the tension between the respect for the traditional and the constant pushing of boundaries. All the way back in episode 1, I spoke about A Celebration of Colour, which is an exhibition which is postponed until further notice. But when we're eventually able to open it, it will look at a number of ways in which colour is used in art, with a particular focus on painting and ceramics. So in episode 1, I spoke about 3 paintings from the exhibition, but another important aspect of the show is studio ceramics. And it's going to include a rainbow of ceramics with the aim of looking at the many vibrant glazes represented in the collection. So this podcast will reflect that aspect of A Celebration of Colour, and I'm going to select 6 pieces representing red, orange, yellow, green, blue and purple, and look at how each artist achieved the incredible glazes and decorative effects of their work. And we'll see how a successful piece of ceramics requires a combination of creative instinct and an understanding of chemistry. And this is because an unfired piece looks completely different from the finished piece after it's been fired in the kiln, due in part to the glaze, which is liquid when applied but becomes a solid fused to the clay during firing. It's also often a totally different colour before it goes into the kiln, as the chemical reaction triggered by the heat transforms the ingredients. And the final colour depends on many factors, including the ingredients used for the glaze, the temperature of the kiln and its firing atmosphere, and even the cooling process. Let's begin by looking at the colour red, which is a notoriously difficult colour to achieve in ceramics. It requires just the right glaze recipe and a tightly controlled firing atmosphere called reduction firing, which involves preventing oxygen from interacting with the piece to help achieve a rich, earthy colour. This bowl by Eddie Curtis is a real gem in the collection, and I'm sorry we don't have a better image of it for you. It hasn't been photographed properly yet, but I hope that despite the light bouncing off it, you can see that incredibly rich red glaze. The interesting thing about this is that copper red glaze actually turns a straw colour when it's at full heat in the kiln, and it isn't until it's cooled that the crystals are released and it turns red. And I chose this to represent the red display because it's a really stunning and intense colour, and the artist has actually worked obsessively to perfect red copper porcelain over the years, and what we're seeing is a result of years of study and experimentation. In fact, in 2010, Curtis had an exhibition called Curtis Red at Rufford Park in Nottinghamshire, which also travelled to Germany. So his studies in this particular technique are really important. Thankfully, we're able to provide a bit of a better image for this piece, which represents orange in our rainbow, for obvious reasons, I think. There are some gorgeous pieces with orange glazes in the collection, but personally I think that the heat and luminosity of this particular piece are pretty unrivalled. It was created by Caiger-Smith, and I'm glad we're able to celebrate him here because he actually only recently passed away in February this year. And during his lifetime he contributed significantly to our knowledge of tin glazed pottery, which is what we're seeing on this goblet. The white shiny background is the result of a glaze of lead and tin oxide, which provides an ideal surface for the application of bright colour. And that vibrant orange you're seeing is a copper lustre overglaze, which would have been painted on after the white glaze was fired. The lustre part refers to the metallic quality of the surface. And the interesting thing about copper in pottery is that it's one of the few metallic elements that has a natural colour other than grey or silver, and it can turn a range of colours, most predominantly green or red depending on which kind of copper is used and how much oxygen it's exposed to in the firing process. So here Caiger-Smith has used it probably in a low oxygen atmosphere to create this fantastic burning orange. Yellow is a slightly difficult colour to talk about because it isn't represented by many pieces in Swindon's collection. But we do see some striking yellows in work from the Ramsbury pottery, which was ran by Peter Holdworth right here in Wiltshire from 1945 to 67. And this platter is a lovely example of Holdworth's domestic ware, which was intended for use around the home. What's really striking about it is how lovely and thick this fantastic ochre glaze is, and those very simple yet lovely painterly marks, which really give the impression of the fluidity of the glaze before the piece was fired. And I'm not entirely sure what glaze recipe was used for this piece, but our local ceramics expert, Mike Yates, who donated the work, suggested that it might be a lead glaze which produces a shiny surface, with antimoniate of lead or iron oxide, both of which can produce yellow glazes and were used in the English ceramic tradition upheld by Holdworth. It was quite difficult to choose just one piece for green, as the collection includes a number of really soft, tranquil shades of green, but I've chosen this stunning Yunomi by Jo Taylor because it makes use of a traditional Japanese celadon glaze, which is iron rich and creates a delicate green coating. Celadon glazes come in a number of colours ranging from a very soft green-grey to the deeper jade of Taylor's work, which stands out beautifully against the throne white porcelain. A Yunomi is a traditional Japanese cup, and Taylor's use of the glaze on the inside is functional as well as decorative. And though the piece is clearly very beautiful, the artist has given much thought to the comfort of the cup's user. The rim is quite thin and it's easy to hold, fitting very comfortably in the hand of the drinker. However, it isn't perfectly round, as the roundness of each Yunomi Taylor created as part of this series is purposefully disrupted. Each piece is totally unique. And it's a lovely example of a very recent contemporary acquisition in Swindon's collection, and a great example of how ceramic artists can beautifully combine form and functionality. Next we have blue, and again this is quite a popular colour in the collection, but I've chosen Malone's Jug from 1986 because it's so vibrant and her use of glaze is really unique. And it's a really exciting piece which is inspired by the artist's interest in deep sea diving. We can see that she's decorated the surface with marine life using low relief decoration, or what is termed sprigged decoration in ceramics. And Malone has covered the jug in shiny pink, blue, green, yellow and brown glazes, which have been applied in layers with a brush, and it's interesting that she's been able to achieve the effect of being underwater, with the layered glazing creating the impression of a vibrant yet obstructed underwater viewpoint. So, as is always the case in Kate Malone's ceramics, we get something rich, surprising and unforgettable with this piece. We'll end on a totally different piece for purple, because whereas Malone's work is bold and colourful, Katherine Pleydell-Bouverie's pots are quiet and exquisite. We have a number of pieces by Pleydell-Bouverie in the collection, which is great because she was a real pioneer of studio pottery in Britain, and she also has a local connection, as in 1946 she moved to Kilmington Manor in Wiltshire, where she worked until she passed away in 1985. She's particularly notable for her extensive research and development of glazes, most notably ash glazes. However, this small stoneware bowl, which is less than 14 centimetres in diameter, has been decorated with a temoko glaze, which is a traditional Japanese glaze, which is known for being able to create a great variety of dark colours, including yellow, brown, black and dark plum, which we see here. The process of heating and cooling has a big effect on the final colour of the Tenmoco glaze, and the more quickly the piece is cooled, the blacker the glaze will become. I won't pretend to know Pleydell-Bouverie's exact process for making this piece, but what I love is the great intensity of that black and dark purple, and the way you really get the sense of the fluidity of the thick liquid, which looks like it might drip off the bottom. There isn't much purple in Swindon's ceramics collection, but the few pieces we do have, like this one, are particularly wonderful. That brings us to the end of this special art snap looking at Swindon's collection of British studio ceramics. Next week I'll take a look at another exhibition that we're missing out on, Pop and Prosperity, and I'll look at some of the interesting and groundbreaking work being made in post-war Britain. In the meantime, don't forget to check out our blog, www.swindonmuseumandartgallery.org.uk/artontour, and there you'll find all of our news, our blog posts and the creative activities that we have on offer through Art on Tour, all inspired by Swindon's collection of modern British art. But until next time, do take care and stay safe. Bye for now.